Ah, good morning. What's up, Tire Garage TV? My name is Pablo. I am the owner, manager, financial guy, the street sweeper. I do everything around here. I'm a one-man team right now. And I'm a small shop located in Southern California, Santa Ana, Southern California, Orange County. And well, this video is just to show. These videos are just to show you just kind of what it is to own a shop, how it goes, everyday life, customers that come in and out, and good. It's fun. So if you're interested in owning a shop, if you're interested in working at a shop, if you're interested in becoming a mechanic or a tire guy, whatever it is, in here on these videos, you'll see what it's like to be one. So a little bit of what it's like to be one. Okay. So, hit that subscribe button and follow us along. Come along for the ride. This week I took a little longer to post a video because my computer crashed. So I had to get a brand new computer, and I had to get a brand new. It didn't crash, but it was just full of videos, so I couldn't do any work on it. And I had to go out and get a new one. In fact, I'm learning a new software as well, so it's taking me a little longer. But let's get going. Let's get going. All right. This week, here's today's topic. Today's video is about how to do a starter. How to do a starter on a 2015 Jeep Cherokee, not the Grand Cherokee, the Cherokee, the regular one, the smaller one. That comes with the 2.4 liter V4 engine. Now, the tricky part about this one is because the starter is actually at the bottom part of the engine on the back, and it's under the air intake manifold. So in order for that to come out, you've got to literally push the engine forward a little bit, get the intake out. I didn't take it out because it was too tight of a squeeze, so I just pushed it aside. And I did it just with one hand, just unbolt. There's two bolts that go on the starter, a top bolt and a bottom bolt, okay? One's on this side facing this way, one's on this side facing this way. And you get rid of those two bolts, unplug the starter, and off it goes, okay? So that's what makes it a little bit more complicated. The fact that it's a fairly new car too, for it to be going out, it went out at 40,000 miles. Actually, let me double check, 40 or 50,000 miles. Yeah, 59,000 miles. So at 60,000 miles, it went out at 60,000 miles, and that's kind of hard pill to swallow, because at 60,000 miles it should be going out, and it did. I tested it, and in fact it was a bad starter. So let's get into it. And it's kind of a long video because it's a long job. It's actually a 4.5 hour job, 5 hour job. This video is over about a 4-day period, because it took a day for me to get the starter. Then by the time the car got here, plus I was busy, plus with other customers, stuff like that. So it's all part of it though, but let's get into it. All right, and have fun watching. Cool. I'll talk to you later. So here's what we're working with. 2015 Jeep Cherokee. It's not the Grand Cherokee, it's the Cherokee. 2.4 liter engine. Starter's bad, right? How we checked it. If we go here, this is the fuse box. This cable here is actually for the he's got some speakers aftermarket. I need to disconnect the battery. So battery's disconnected now. If we this one, and this one are the starter fuses, right? This one's actually goes directly to the starter. If you pull this fuse here with the power probe, I did it. So the fuse was like this. This fuse here, this entrance here is the one that actually gives power to the starter. So that wire is the one that goes down connected to the starter, right? So with the power probe, if you feed 12 volts here, it'll activate the starter, so it'll actually crank. we did that on Saturday with Power Probe. I don't have the Power Probe here. I need to buy it. That's one of the tools I'm actually missing. And that actually gives power to the starter. When you do that, all you really hear is a click. That means the wire goes here to the starter. The only thing that could be messed up from here down there is the actual wire itself. Likelihood of that being is very, very low. So most likely what it is the starter, right? Because it's feeding power and you can hear it click, but the starter's not engaging. It's supposed to push out and spin, and it's not doing that. So being that we tested that already, we know it's the actual starter. Now the starter's a bitch to get to. It's a really bitch to get to. And let's see, hold on. Let me get some light back there. Disconnect fuel lines. I've got to disconnect, and I might have to disconnect injectors. You can't see it there. I might need to disconnect injectors, and that's why I say, see this here is the air intake. So I've got to take all this off to get to the starter. To get to that starter, which is under all that. So, got some work to do. Let's do it. Little by little, I'm gonna just start showing you what I'm taking off. So the first thing I took off is air tube. Air tube goes up here, right, connected down to the throttle body. This air tube is held on basically by one bolt here, and the clamp that holds on here. And the throttle body just kind of pops out, right? And next, I'm going to disconnect these fuel lines and see if I can take off this cover. It's a heat cover that comes from the off the intake manifold. So disconnect these fuel lines is what I'm doing next. These are fairly easy. Pop the security pin out. Careful not to break anything. These are all plastic, so careful with all that. Okay, here's the backing plate. So this is like this on top of the intake. This is the backing plate. Those are the 4 bolts, 8mm. I like to keep everything together. That gives you a little bit more space to work with back there. So let me figure out where the bolts are for this thing. And it should, I'm really hoping that it's only like 5 or 6 bolts. That way we can pull the intake away and probably lift it over. Now these things are really fucking digging into my skin. Look at that. So I'm gonna take this whole, it's just a wiring harness. It's a wiring harness that I can probably tuck away in here. That way it's more than anything the zip ties that are they're digging into my skin. They're just scratching me up, and they hurt. So every time I put my arm down there, my forearm gets stuck here, and they're just scratching me up. So I'm going to pull that off next and search where the bolts are for the intake. That way I can pull it off. All right, so here's where we're at. Under the car. Let me turn this flash on. See that right there? That's a bracket that holds the intake. That bottom part that you're looking at, that's the intake. And that's where it sits on that bracket. Those 2 bolts, those 2 threads actually have 2 nuts. 10mm nuts. There are these right here. They're fairly easy to take off. They're in reach and they're accessible, so they're not impossible to get to. The top ones are the ones that are going to be a little bit more headache, so let's get to those. I spent, I'm not kidding you, about 10 minutes already trying to unplug this damn wire. All I did was just disconnect this fucking hose. Took this hose away, put it over here somewhere. There. The damper just hangs there. All you gotta do is pull it, like kind of just press it off of this. It's like a rubber bushing. So just push it off and it comes out. Next, disconnect these injectors. Careful, careful, careful. Let me put the flash on so you have more light. There you go. You pull this tab up carefully. Remember, it's plastic. Plastic loves to break. Alright, here's what we got so far. The 2 nuts and the 1 bolt, 10mm. They came out of, so here's where we're at. Those 3 bolts that I showed you before, this thing actually has 5. There's 1 in here. This is how deep it is. Look, you can't see it. That's how far it is. So you won't be able to see it, but you know it's there. Let me show you how. Is that, where is it? In here. Boom, see it? That's where that thing is. That's the last one that has to be removed. Once that one goes out, this whole thing should loosen up quite a bit and come out fairly easy. Now, I'm going to have to remove also, actually, not remove, but at least loosen this motor mount. That way the engine can move around and I can make room for it to come out. So, let's get that bolt out of there. Here, I guess I can hold you there while you watch me. See that? Just get it in, feel around, boom, it's in. Okay. Once it's in, then I can snap. Now it's hard to do it with one hand. But boom, it's there. So once it's there, careful with it. I'm doing it with one hand, right? But I suggest you use 2. So it's loose, right? Once it's loose, you can take it off just by hand, because it's fairly loose. Here's the tricky part. Don't drop it. The other one, that's on the other side, I did drop. So once I take this whole manifold out, I'm going to have to look for it. Careful. 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 Oh, it's not there. So that means it's not all the way out yet. You know what? Let me let go of this camera. Let me just do it. Use both hands. Like my dad used to say, you're making it hard on yourself just because you want to, because you can easily do it two-handed and do it right. Wait, I'm tightening. It's the other way. See, guys, all I'm doing this shit just so you can watch. Lastly, this is where the throttle body was. You see that bracket right there? Let me turn the light on again. The flash. See that bolt right there? Right in the middle of the screen. That one. That one has to come out, and the bottom one right below that is another one. Those 2 nuts have to come out to loosen. See how so I shake the intake and the throttle body moves, well, at least the housing of it, but it's still bolted on, so it's not going to let go. So I got to take that out. Also pry these are those push ins that hold this wiring. I can cut the zip ties, but just pry these out and get that bolt, that nut, and this nut off. That it says it's supposed to take off the bracket, so these 2 nuts also, or these 2 bolts also come out to release the whole bracket. But I think you can just take off the 2 nuts and they should release. So, I'm going to do that for now. Actually, I'm going to take the whole bracket out just to make it easy. So as you notice, the intake is down there. It's usually up here, but it's off already. But I'm having a hard time pulling it out, right? Whoo-hoo, that's what she said. This mount right here, I took the 3 bolts off so the engine falls. Careful with that, because what you have to do is grab a jack with the block of wood, support the bottom part of the engine where the oil pan is, support it with that block of wood, so when the engine falls, actually don't let it fall. You have to support it so the engine kind of lifts up a little bit. Then you can take the bolts out. Do it slowly, do it carefully. Once you see the engine kind of drop a little bit, that means it's sitting on the block of wood. If you notice, it's not aligned right now. It's moved over to this side a little bit, which is what I have to do. I have to move the engine this way so I can fit that thing out. So that's what I'm working on right now. I need both hands, so I can't be recording at the same time. So, but one thing I wanted to tell you, make sure everything is disconnected, because as you can tell, down there, that little wire, where is it? That little wire right here is still on with that clip, those plastic clips. So make sure everything, that little wire will not let the intake come out. So make sure everything's disconnected before you pull anything out. That way you don't rip anything. Here's what we're gonna do. The intake is pretty much up here. Difficult to get out. It's kind of stuck. It's not stuck, but it's sitting there. That firewall and the engine are just too close. They're just not budge. It just doesn't budge that much. To give it a clear, easy way to get out, right? I'm gonna have to squeeze it out. If I do that, I'm gonna have to squeeze it back in. It's in a place where I could take these gaskets out and replace them. It's also at a place where I think I can get to the starter. See it? It's right there. That bolt right there is the one that I gotta get out. And then there's one under it. I think I could do it blindly. So let's get to it. The bottom one is gonna be the difficult one. But as soon as I get just the way I did with the intake, just blindly, you feel it, boom, insert it. As long as that socket sits in there nicely, I just attach a ratchet to it and turn it. So I'm gonna do that. That one shouldn't be, it's gonna be a little difficult, but it's doable. So let's get to work. That's what we're talking about right there. That thing. That's the starter. The cables are right there. You can see it. Well, this one's one of them. That's the other one. Once I break it loose, I should be able to pull it out. And that way take the cables, disconnect the cables out too. Here's what I'm fighting with. This is why I love engineers. Stupid. So the bottom bolt is out, but look where it's at. That tube right there is in the way. That's a breather tube for the differential. So that breather tube is not letting that bolt out, which is in turn not letting the starter out. So freaking headache. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try lifting the transmission. So I'm going to drop it back down enough, because it's literally like a 1/4 inch that I need to clear, and it'll let that bolt out. So let me try that. The top bolt is out already. Everything's disconnected. Actually, one plug needs to be disconnected. But that stupid tube, that stupid bolt right there. Look at that. See, it's right up against that damn tube. It's a breather tube. They couldn't face that up. They couldn't face it sideways. They couldn't face it straight up. Keep it erect. I mean, they had to freaking face it right towards the bolt. So you can't, look at that. See, that's the starter right there. The bolt, and then it's right up against it. Mother. Alright, so this is what happened. See that breather tube down there? That's the one that didn't let the... Ah, crap. That's the... My battery's low, so the light went up. That's the one that didn't let the bolt out. If you notice, it's kind of twisted up a little bit. What I did was get some help from the shop next door, so I could have 4 hands here. He was using me, pushing me with the light. He said just bend it up a little bit. I was like afraid to crack it, afraid to break it. So with the pry bar, we just bent it up a little bit. It's a breather tube, so all it really does is let air, the pressurized, with the heat and the cold, the air becomes pressurized in there. So all it did was it actually just turns, it's spun up a little bit. Now it's really tight, so you got to do it with a pry bar. But be real careful. If it breaks off, your transmission's not gonna fuck up. If it breaks off, like it's not gonna be the end of the world. You can replace those, but it'd be best not to, right? So with that small angle, it actually let the bolt out. So there you go. And as for the connector, what do I always say? Plastic loves to break. So what happens is the connector locking mechanism actually broke when I pulled it off. Where is it? It's like a little red tab, but it broke off. Either way, it's still secure. It still locks in place. So when you push it in, it still locks in place. This is what I mean. This connector here. So see that tab right here? That still locks it in place, so it won't affect it. It'll still be fine. Now this is the old one. This is the new one. Notice the new one doesn't have that. This part here is the connector, and it doesn't come with it here. So what they did is put a cable here so I can swap it over. Swap the connector, this connector over here. I told them I don't want to do that. I'd rather you send it to me just like this. That way, any warranty or any situation like that, they can take care of it. They're good. They rebuild alternator starters all the time. So they're going to come pick this one up, rebuild it, and send it back. Hopefully within, he said about 30 minutes he'll come pick it up, rebuild it. It usually takes them about an hour and a half. They send this one back, and I'll throw this one back in the car. Whoa. Falling off. Alright, so we closed up. It is Thursday, about 6:20. We'll go get my hair did. I need a haircut. I start feeling all the grays back here. I look like I'm fucking 40. I'm not 40, by the way. So the Jeep's not done. Little bastard's taking forever. The starter doesn't have... The starter that I got doesn't have the connection like I told you earlier. They just came to pick it up. It's like 4. I'm gonna have to... I'm gonna do it tomorrow. My focus is tomorrow though. So by tomorrow, I want that car out of there. The customer needs it back too, so I'm trying to finish it up as soon as possible. But we'll see you guys tomorrow. I got it. Alright, let's set this bad boy in. I wish I could put the camera down there so you can see. I need two hands down there for this. I even got my pinky working. It didn't work. One hand, I held the starter, and with the other one, I just held it with the pinky and turned the bolt to where at least one of the threads caught. And now I'm tightening it up. But here's what I wanted to show you. I'm passionate about the shit I do. Look at this. Blood, sweat, and tears. I leave sweat in every single car that I work in. Call it nasty, but shit, I call it passion. That bottom one was easy to get to. Now that little valve is up, so it was like this, right? And the bolt would butt up right against it. And there's just no way to get it out. So what we did is twist. So it just turned, what, 45 degrees? Maybe less, 35 degrees? And maybe more? I said less, and then I say 35. Well, anyways, but that made it a whole lot easier. The bolt came right out, and now I'm putting it in, and I'm just twisting it. Just putting it in manually, as deep as possible, and then I'm going to use the ratchet, the short ratchet. Okay, so it's in as far as possible. This ratchet don't fit, and I remember, yeah, I didn't use a ratchet. I used this. It's a ratcheting wrench. So this way is tightened, so it has to sit like this. So that's what I used. That's why, especially when you're dealing with stuff like this, these ratchets won't fit. A socket won't fit sometimes. So these ratcheting wrenches are a lifesaver. It's tightening. Make sure it's nice and tight. Now one thing to pay attention to. Whoa, careful guys, you're falling. One thing to pay attention to, which I didn't, but I got lucky. The 14 millimeter bolt was the one at the bottom. The 15 millimeter bolt is the one at the top. They both probably fit in the same threads are the same. But it's easier to get a 14 down there versus getting a 15. They're just slightly, the head would be slightly bigger on the 15 versus the 14. So just remember, if you pull the 14 out of the bottom, put that one back in the bottom and leave the 15 up top. It just, the 15, you've got more space, you got more room to look at, to see it, to fit a wrench, to fit a socket, versus down there the 14. So just pay attention to that. Make sure bolts and nuts go exactly where you took them off of. Right? So pay attention to that. Okay, the alternator's connected. All the starter's connected. Now we just start piecing everything back together. This hose is way at the bottom. This is that one nozzle that we took off that was in the way. Here's the other thing, the gasket. The gaskets for the intake have to be replaced. Whenever you take a gasket out, except for the throttle body. The throttle body usually you can leave. With the amount of miles that this has right now, I'm just going to leave the throttle body gaskets alone. It's just one. But the intake, yeah, I'm going to replace. They're all kind of sandy and dusty. Oops. Let's see. Try to get it to sit still. To show you what I'm replacing. These are it right here. See that? It's just a rubber gasket. In fact, this one was almost leaking already too. You can see marks of it on the outside, those black marks. It was like, oh, it's going to start leaking. Let me show you. See that? I hope you can see. So this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those four need to be, and they're easy, just come out. One thing though, make sure you clean this area up, and then here where they connect to, just wipe it down. See if you can see that. Here, get some line in there. That area, just make sure to clean it up too. Make sure there's no gunk, junk, oil, grease on there. So, got the gaskets in, and we just have to line everything. Make sure nothing's in the way. Actually, this had a big sponge right here. Hold on. Oh, see the shape? It runs right above the starter. And this was actually sitting there. I don't know if it's to prevent from. I think it's to prevent it's to prevent the intake from moving a little too much or shaking. Like this guy goes off road a lot, so you know the intake and everything kind of takes a beating, especially when you use off-road vehicles a lot. They're made for it, right? But they still take a beat. See, this is what that Bluetooth is for. Right in the middle of it, I get phone calls. Answer. Tire garage? Yeah. Hey, Will. What's up, man? Yeah, I'm piecing everything back together, so I should have it done in a few hours. Yeah. So, yeah, I think so. Call me before, just in case. But yeah, you should be good to go today. Cool. All right, brother, you got it. Bye. I think it's all right. That was the customer calling about the Jeep. See if it's going to be ready today. And yeah, it should be ready today. These two nuts were over here. Make sure don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it. Yeah, I dropped it. I hate it when I do that. Okay, so that one's on. Let me see the one I dropped. Should be here somewhere, so let me stick a magnet in there. These are lifesavers. Let's see if we can find it. Yep, there it is. See, they're lifesavers. Not really, but they're very useful. Especially people like me who drop nuts and bolts all the time. I don't know why. I got butterfingers. So those two are on. So that's on. These two. Now we gotta get the. I'm gonna tighten up the three up top, just snug, and then I'm gonna tighten up the bottom one. And the bottom two are gonna be crazy because remember it's the ones that are sunk into the intake. In this case, we're definitely gonna need this. Great, I broke it. That piece is actually this. It's a smaller magnet, but it's a broken extension that I use when I gotta dig small parts out of an engine. Because a lot of times the engine, the nut or the bolt falls into the worst stem place. Like right now, I'm about to drop one. Hold on, I'm trying to set up the extension with the swivel so I can introduce the bolts back in there. You got to be careful. I wish these sockets had like a slight magnet there. I can't remember. It's right here. That's not going to fit. It's not going to fit. So I can't use a swivel. So here's what I'm going to use. I'm going to actually use the magnet. I'm going to actually use the magnet extension, introduce it, and turn it. As long as it catches a couple threads, it'll be good to go. I can go back in there with the socket. How do you know it caught the threads? Well, when you pull it, the magnet comes with it. Just like that. See that? Let's do it with the other one. Grade it up. Just make sure it's centered, not off to the side like that. That way, when you turn it, great! I just dropped my GoPro down there. Stupid GoPro! Get out of the way! Always careful about leaving things here too. You leave tools up here and a GoPro, and you close the lid or the hood, and you forget about it. And guess what? The customer has a new GoPro. So find the hole. Ah, great! I dropped it all the way down. See, I drop everything. It's annoying. Now I gotta use the magnet to get the other magnet. There it is. Yeah, I just introduced it. Don't go in there with the ratchet and just start turning away. Go in again, this time by hand. Find it. Find it and start turning it by hand. Make sure it catches threads evenly, because if it caught the thread crooked and you start turning with the ratchet, you're going to cross thread, and that's not a good thing. See, it feels a little tighter right there, so it caught. It's good. Try the other one. You gotta look for it. Again, you gotta look for it. I'm doing it blindly, right? So it's sunk in, it feels good. It's turning. If it gets hard, if it gets difficult, pull out. Take it off. Take the nut off. Take the socket off. Take the bolt out. The last thing you want to do is cross thread things. It happens to all of us once in a while. It shouldn't be once in a while, but all right. Here's what we got. I put everything together already. You guys did it. I did. That cover in the back, I put in. You got more space because of the engine. The important thing that I wanted to note was the motor mount. So the engine mounts, as you recall, I loosened those three of them. All those three, you see them there? I loosened those off. Those were gone. So the engine was actually hanging from this side, right? It was hanging on this mount only, which I ended up loosening these three as well. You see 1, 2, then 3 right here. Those were also loose, so I can wiggle the engine around and get that starter out. Well, all you had to do, again, it was sitting on that block of wood. Under the engine was the oil pan. So as you lift the engine, it starts aligning with the bolts. It was pretty easy. I thought it was going to have a hard time. Sometimes you'll have a hard time because you got to shake it, adjust it, fix it, make sure the bolts align. As long as you get one in, the other two will align. So it was pretty easy. Just pulled it, and it all aligned perfectly. This side is tight. This side is tight. The only other thing that I had to connect was the fuel lines back here, the ones that were over there. The fuel lines, you just pop them in. The damper, don't forget it. Plug everything in. All these connectors. This one was off. This one was off. Throttle body's in. Throttle body's right here. And the air tube. So let's go inside and start it for the first time. Battery's connected, but that plug is a little loose too. And somebody told me that these cars, I guess, have a issue with the plug, with the negative cable from the battery. I guess it comes loose and has issues because what one person said, I forgot who told me. So make sure everything's connected. Let's grab the key. So what they told me was that what it would do is all of a sudden it would erase the memory from the car, like the stations and all that. It would erase. The car would still turn on and everything, but it would just erase everything. So I think everything got connected, right? Okay, something did get. You know what? The battery's dead. The battery's dead because I left it unplugged and I actually left it connected with the key on it for a long time. So let's give it about 30 minutes. Let me charge it up. So I hooked up the charger. Let me charge the battery for about 15 minutes. Give it a little bit of juice. And actually, it's still full 30. So give it about 30 minutes. Ready? 1, 2, and we're back, fully charged. And also, we're on the other side of the shop. Whoa, how'd that happen? Anyways, yeah, fully charged, ready to go. It turned on already twice, so we're good to go. Customer's on his way to pick it up. If you have any questions about this, comment below, hit me up, ask me. I am available, so, give me a call. This took me, 3 days? Because they couldn't find the starter. The one they sent me was bad. Not bad, but it had the plug or the connection. The connection was different. Remember? I showed you. And then also I had to figure out how to get in there. I didn't have the Mitchell instructions to figure out how to do it. And Mitchell kind of guided you through taking out the intake, whereas I didn't take it out. I just left it there. It just didn't. It was still. It wouldn't have been easier. It would have been the same thing. So yeah. And yeah, you can do this whole job from the top using basic tools. You don't need anything special. You need a lot of tools: 10mm sockets, ratchets, different sizes, wrenches, ratcheting. That's it. Nothing special, nothing big, nothing, specially made. So, by the way, remember what I said about leaving stuff inside the engine bay? I almost forgot this here. I cleaned everything out already. I checked everything twice. And I almost forgot this sucker in here. So, careful, just always check, always leave, always check everything. If you drop something, remember, get it out. I dropped the socket, and I dropped the ratchet, and I dropped the wrench in that engine. So I remember to pull everything out. So just don't forget it, because why? Next time somebody works on that car, guess what it is? It's a gift. It's a free ratchet. It's a free wrench. And that ratchet alone was like $90. That little one. Let me show you. This is my most expensive ratchet. $80-$90. That's how much this was. My other ones, this is a Harbor Freight, so this one was what, $20, $30, $20. So yeah, any questions, comments, leave them below. Any questions on how to do it, or if you're doing it at home. I would probably not recommend doing it at home, but it is possible. You could do it. You could do it at home. So yeah, good luck, guys. If you get on this job, hope you Hope it goes well. All right. Take care. And the fun part is at the end, guys, when you have to pick everything up. Look at this junk. All those tools are what I used. Sockets, ratchets, screwdrivers, pry bars.
When you've got a job, we're on the job. The Home Depot. More saving, more doing.
Las peores excusas para terminar una relación. Como el gato de la llamada que dice tengo poco hombre, la verdad, y que está pasando por su enfermedad. Y aparte no me voy a decir excusas. No es cierto, como yo, por ejemplo, me ha pasado y digo la verdad, lo que es, yo les digo.